everybody, I'm back. It's Lori from Lori Kent Designs, and I'm here with Costa and his wonderful embroidery studio here. So, welcome back. This is part 2 of Take Me to the Beach, my very own embroidery pillow. I'm going to show it again. If you've watched part 1, that's a great thing, and this is part 2. So, let me show you the pillow real quickly again. This is our embroidery project. Take Me to the Beach. I'm going to lift it over my head so you can see it. I'm going to try to move it around a bit.
Right.
Okay.
Looks great.
Yeah. So this is Take Me to the Beach. This is my very own design, inspired by my summers as a child spent on an island off the coast of Maine. And I love designing it. So this is part 2. Now, part 2, what we're going to do is we are going to stitch out the lobster block. So this is a stitch block. Right here, we're going to stitch out the lobster.
Perfect.
So you're going to grab your fabric. You're going to cut your fabric in the directions that we've shown you. And Costa has done this. I'm going to switch the camera over to camera 2 here.
And this particular piece, and I'll take it away from you, Lori, real quick. This particular piece was a 4. We were to cut 4 by 7 because it's going to end up finished at 3 by 6. So I've given you guys an inch around, meaning a half of an inch, because you'll end up, when we finish trimming this, we'll trim it to a 1/4 of an inch. Now we're going to take this. This is my Terreal Magic. If you remember in the last video, I put it in the mister bottle because I like the way it sprays a lot better than their spray that comes with it. They have a spraying apparatus at the top of it, which I think sprays too heavy. So I'm going to do this.
And you're spraying it on the wrong side of the fabric?
Wrong side of the fabric, and you can see.
There we go.
And it needed to start.
Now, I love Terreal Magic because it actually, when you pick it up after ironing it, it's just like a piece of paper.
It is, and it does keep it stiff, and that's something that some people do not like. Now I'm going to take, and today I am going to use. I have my parchment paper on the bottom, but I'm going to use a little piece of stabilizer just since I have it close, and I'm going to just sew it on.
Just iron it?
Yeah, just the very first iron of it, because I don't want my iron filled with Terreal Magic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm ironing it from the back. I have a nice hot iron. I have my parchment paper down at the bottom.
Ask me how I know when you're ironing. How many times have I ironed something with something like a heat and bond or something? And my iron is on it.
Yeah,
oh my gosh, and it just creates such a mess on the iron.
It does create a mess. And this does too, sort of. So I like to just thing. And then this takes off the extra on it. And there's still stuff on it. And then I'm going to put this on it and just go over it. Look how fast it is. And you can feel already it's stiffening it. Now that stuff's going into the fibers of our
it's like a liquid stabilizer.
It is, and it's stronger than starch, and it is my favorite stable, especially with these cottons that have weak weaves, as I call them.
It's like extra insurance, and I wish they had the video, you could actually touch it, but when you do it, it actually feels like a piece of paper.
And you can feel it's
and it doesn't stay that way, right, Costa?
No, it will not stay that way, because the more you handle it, it comes off, and once you start stitching on it, you're going to put your batting and all that. Now I had realized that I still had a wet spot there, so I just get it, and here you go, and now it's ready to go, and we are going to put our lobster on it. So now I'm ready to go over here, and you can see I used this piece of cutaway, just an old piece of cutaway, just to use it to press on it, and I promise you, Lori, I still am going to use it in sewing.
All right, so now I'm going to cut over here to me, and
my embroidery.
Costa is taking the piece of fabric that we just Terreal Magic.
Right, and I'm going to try to cut to this
there we go.
There we go, sorry.
So now we're at our 550
embroidery machine, correct.
Yes.
Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, I have my Janome 550E, which I absolutely adore. And I'm going to take this Janome, and the first thing I'm going to do, as you can see on this screen, and I'm going to make sure you're on this screen, And I'm not sure which camera that is. No, I'm sorry. And so now you're on this screen. Sorry, it's a little bit tilted, but you get a chance to see. This is my, yes, this is my lobster. As you can see, it's the total, but in Janome land, we just put this, and now you notice that my first stitch is a placement stitch. You can see if I bring down my, you can see where it says placement, and then we'll have a tack down. And then we'll be putting our fabric. So this is very important in the development of this block. Of any of these blocks, this is very important. The first stitch is a placement stitch. So again, I'm going to get on camera number 2. I'm going to cut to that and let you see me stitch that out.
And the one great thing about my embroidery designs with my bench pillows, it includes a stippling stitch.
It does. A beautiful stippling stitch.
So it's not top quilted. All the embroidery is together in one block.
And if you saw an extra stitch, an extra piece of thread, that was my leader thread. No big deal. You're going to end up cutting all that away.
So now we're doing the
And
placement
I
stitch.
purposely, just for show today, I'm using a black bobbin. I realized that would help you see the white on top of white.
That is very
so
smart.
I know, and I learned that in a little trick from one of the shops that I was visiting. She uses a black bobbin when she's on screen. So I thought, oh my God, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah, so it makes you see it better.
So now we're going to tack down. We're going to first tack down. This is very important. We're going to first tack down our stabilizer.
Which is our, sisters.
Our battleizer, forgive me.
Our
battleizer.
yeah.
I said stabilizer, battleizer. You brought stabilizer in there, and there we go. And yes, I would never use black bobbin with white top. But again, so don't think I'm using it, but really, I wanted you to be able to see it.
To see it, yeah.
Some way to see it. And I probably could have used the top color, but I wanted to really come up with a block that made sense.
Yep.
All right, so now we've tacked that down. Now the next, it says raise your presser foot, of course, I did. Now, the next is going to be a stitch around and stippling. So this is the time I would use, and I would place this right here. I would put this here, and this is when you could use your water soluble thread to base this down or to put this down. Today I'm not using water soluble because I'm not going to switch to take that time, but this one line around you could use for your water soluble thread. All right, so we're going to put this in. This is the stitch that the tack down for this top fabric can be done in water soluble thread. So let me show you how you'll do it. You'll wait for this to end because it's going to give you a stopping point. And you see how it stops right there? And it's going to cut. You'll stop it. You'll stop it and change your thread to your stippling thread, which would be a normal white thread. This is where you really do need to use some water soluble if you feel that your stitching will not be exact, and it will really look like a very good finish. So now we're going to stipple, and you'll see that your stippling for this particular thing will take a little bit more time. So we're going to let this stipple out. One thing I want you to notice, if you can tell, that your stipple stitch has got a double type of stitch that I created. So it has like a little bit of a back stitch to it. By doing that, it gives you just a little bit. So let's cut to camera 3 there. You're good. Cut to camera 3, and you guys will see how that stands up a little bit. So I'm going to try to move this while you're standing right there, Lori. Just a little bit. Can y'all see that now? How it makes that really puffier when you're doing it.
I love it. I love the stippling stitch in my pillows because it creates so much dimension.
Dimension,
And
it does.
texture, and it's just, I think it just makes it look
And
classy.
we've used white on some of these, and you can see, this is a good example, thank you, Lori, because you can see the example of that stitch has almost a double stitch to it. And so your stippling will take a little bit longer than most. So we're going to let this stipple out, and then we're going to show it to you after it stipples out, and we'll be right back in 1 minute. So give us a minute, and we'll be right back. We're back, everybody.
We're back, everybody, and we just finished, our machine just finished, actually, the stippling stitch, as you can see right there.
And now we're going to start. We've put our red thread in, which I think is called sultry, and we're going to put that in and start our stitching of our
Lobster.
lobster. And I'm going to let it stitch a little bit out, Lori, so they see the foundation to it at least.
There's
and as
his
you can
legs.
see, you can see the red, the legs coming in.
It's amazing how this whole project came together with me thinking about it, and then I take it to a sketch pad. I have a sketch pad, and I sketch out what the pillow I think what I would like it to look like.
Right.
Then I go to my iPad and I go to my Procreate, and I think about what kind of images I want. And I look at photographs, and I go on Pinterest, and I get some more ideas, and then my kids say, oh, what about a lobster, what about a crab, what about this, what about that? And then I proceed to draw the elements, then I take it over to my computer, and I bring it in and out of Photoshop and Illustrator, and it becomes a piece of art, and then I send it over to Costa, and he turns it into stitches, and now we're seeing it stitched out.
Yeah. And so one of the things is, as you can see, on the 550E, of course, you can see that exact stitching of, and those stitches are very difficult to create in a digitizing program because, you know, you're looking at her artwork and you're trying to keep the integrity of the artwork and still make sure that the details are there. So that's one of the reasons that I love using very tiny needle, like a 7010, a very microtex needle, and again, so that we can get in there, and making sure your bobbin is a high tension bobbin. So in all of your machines, there's always a special embroidery bobbin case. I'm saying bobbin case that is built for embroidery, whether it be Brother, Baby Lock, of course Bernina. They have these bobbin cases that are high tension bobbins for most of their embroidery machines. And I of course know that Janome also, as the one I'm using now, is the yellow dot bobbin, which will be a high tension. That's why these little stitches are not showing my bobbin thread. And my bobbin thread is black bobbin thread, but you can't tell
amazing.
that. Yeah, it is.
That's amazing.
And it's totally black. And I was a little bit concerned this morning when I loaded it, because I asked the person, I said, you know, I never thought about doing the whole block. I just wanted y'all to see the beginning. But she says, oh, you should throughout the block, because if your bobbin case is tight enough, it won't show through. And she was absolutely right. So my bobbin case is a high tension bobbin. So check with your manufacturer and make sure you have that in your embroidery machine. Now we're going to let this stitch a little bit more, but we're going to be cutting this again, and we'll be getting back to you in just a minute, when, of course, your time, just a minute, and we will have this lobster stitched out. But all it is now you're on stitch, and I'm going to turn this one on, and let me make sure that's on, and hit cut to number 7, and then hit cut. And then you'll see that we are on step number 4, wherever machine you're using, and you're just doing the special stitch out. And your block will look like this when it's all done. As you can see, it's, and let me move it just a little bit up so you see it. But anyway, so it's 7, but I've got just this stitching out right now. You can see it in my number 2, and we'll cut to that, and you can see just the legs. Thank you, just the legs going. Lori's learned to use that board just as well as I do. So now, and you can see just the legs going. But we'll be right back in just a moment with our finished beautiful block.
Okay, everybody, now our embroidery machine has finished stitching out the stippling and the lobster. Look how beautiful that looks,
Isn't that
Costa?
gorgeous? Yes.
Yeah.
And it looks beautiful. We've got all our stippling in there. We've also got it done, and it is in. It's ready to go, and it's ready to be trimmed. Now, I'm suggesting to our fellow Lori Kent Design fans, trim them as you go, because nobody wants to trim 40 blocks or 30 blocks.
Yes.
And you'll see how involved it is. So trim them as you go and put them back in your bags or whatever you need. You know, whatever block 1 was or whatever. This is block 2 today. So I'm going to pull it out real fast. And now we're going to go over to my mat. Thank you so much. And that's, of course, our design. We know we're done. It'll say completed at the top. And then we're going to go over to 3. And I'm going to show you when I turn my magic wand on here. And there it is. And there he is, beautifully done. And now I'm going to pull him right out of my hoop. Out of my hoop that has been redone. Has been with hoop grip in it. And now we're going to do some cutting. So this was my ironing board. Now I'm going to move my ironing board out of the way, Miss Lori. And I am going to shut this. By the way, one of the Martelli people, and I know I'm not being legal doing this, but they were so impressed by our videos with Lori Kent with our garden pillow, because one of their people bought our garden pillow, and she realized that she saw me using this.
Martelli mat.
Yeah, and so they were so happy that they were so glad. Anyway, trimmer by George. As you can see, let me show you this one more time because I was running my mouth. You can see that everything behind here, I want to get rid of. I only want this facing left on these edges. So I'm going to saw into it, and then I'm going to pull it back, tug a little bit so I get as much of that bulk as I can, and then I'm going to cut it right off. Doesn't matter, you're just cutting that stuff out right now. We'll get to that 1/4 inch in just a minute. Let's just cut that backing off. I love it. If you had a frustrating day, just do these blocks. And then just cut. Put it in there. Actually, the Hoop Sister idea is my favorite idea.
Now, Costa, what if somebody doesn't have a hoop
And
sister
can't
by
get to
George,
one very well.
So what's the best way for them to trim?
The best way is the Leanie Herman way.
The Leanie Herman way.
And Leanie's my wonderful friend. And so Leanie Herman, she's a famous girl lady too in California. She's wonderful. She teaches embroidery. She's teaching me stuff too. The best way to do it, what Leanie does, is she just trims everything to 1/4 of an inch.
Mm-hmm.
And that is really the best way to do it. If you don't have, and she doesn't care about the bulk because she's using probably her foot, I use AccuFeed Flex, which is the Janome patented even feed foot. Again, a walking foot when we're sewing these together in our sewing machine. And I know Leanie is wonderful with that. So either way, I love the trimmer by George because of the bulk, Lori. But Leanie said, Costa, I don't have one. I'm doing the 1/4 of an inch. And she's done many samples for us in the Lori Kent line, and she is wonderful too. So we love her, and so I will respect that. But I do love the trimmer by George. But it is another thing, but it's something to have if you know you're going to be doing Lori Kent stuff. Like these pillows, I love to take the bulk out, Lori. I really do.
Well, it does help when you're putting
And you're
together.
putting them together, and you saw that yourself. So, but Leanie is a wonderful sewist also, and some people are not. So you could see what I did. I took it, and the 1/4 inch, once I took out all of that stuff. You see my black bobbin? You see, you didn't even see it, did you?
Hey!
And then there's my black bobbin. And then you can see, of course, that I've cut this, I've trimmed it. The one thing about the trimmer by George, guys, is it does have the long dotted line, which is your 1/4 inch. Once I put it on that white line right there. Okay, so either way, again, if you don't have it, make sure that you do. These are 1/4 inch. Now they're ready to be sewn. Now, when I put it with another block, again, this is, I know you can see this now. I may even bring it down, Lori, just a tiny bit so you can see that line that I'm touching here. This is your sewing line. This is your sewing
You know what?
line.
I love it because how many people you're trying to do a 1/4 inch on your sewing machine? It's great to have a guide there to say, where I'm going to.
I don't even use my 1/4 inch now because I just follow this. And look what's happened here. By accident, I've used a different color bobbin just for this line only. You should use a different color thread because now this becomes your sewing line and you can see it so well.
Yeah.
You don't have to use that as your bobbin, but just when you're stitching it first, putting your first placement line down, use a different color thread. Nothing's going to be seen. You can't see it. And the best thing is it becomes, and so if you're sewing from the back like you would, putting fronts together, you have that beautiful guideline there where your sewing machine will do, as I used to say, my grandmother used to say, 1 or 2 threads beyond that line, and that's all you're going to stitch right on that line. 1 or 2 threads.
And that's when you're sewing it together.
Sewing it together. So when you put it together, this is block number 2, and it is my little sweet little lobster that makes me want to have lobster, but I can't afford it. And so,
especially now
with a lot of butter.
Yes.
So maybe I'll be able to afford it someday. But it's lobster season, I don't know. But anyway, I'm going to go to Maine. They say just to have Maine lobster is supposed to be wonderful.
All right.
So
we're going to take that. So we're going to.
And
So
here
we're
it
gonna,
is
we're
in
gonna
our
put
pillow.
it here, and we're gonna show you there. So obviously you can tell. Oops, it's a little bit larger here because we sew it together.
That's right. And this has been stretched a little bit because we had the thing, but you can see it is exactly the same size, and we used exactly a 1/4 inch all the way around it.
Yep. Okay, so this concludes our part 2. Part 3, we are going to stitch out a filler block. Now, a filler block, we're going to stitch out block number 27.
We're just going to show you how we do a filler block because, again, the process is the same. We're going to do a placement line. It's going to stop on you. Then we're going to do a tack down line, which tacks down your batting, and then another line which will do that, do another tack down, and then start your stippling. And like I said, I have a stop built in, and that stop will help you if you are using water soluble thread, because if in fact you can see a line here, if I saw a line here, I could take my water pen and just wash away the stitches.
Wash it away, yeah.
Because the stitches will wash away. And that was a Leanie Herman thing. She says, Costa, use that water soluble thread.
Yes.
And I said, oh, Leanie, I don't like it because it breaks too much. She says, are you keeping it in a plastic bag? I said, no. She says, as humid as it is in North Carolina, it is ruining the thread. So
Yeah.
keep it in your plastic bag.
Keep it in your plastic bag.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is block number 27, and I will show you here, as on the diagram.
It's
There
right
it is,
there.
block number
My
27.
fingers right there. Yes.
And so block number 27 is the filler block, and that is part 3. So let me cut over here to the camera here.
And we'll do right there.
There we go. Thank you so much. Thank you, Costa, for embroidering along
Enjoyed
with
it.
us today as we did the lobster. This is the conclusion of part 2. The next video will be part 3, where we will be stitching out the filler block, block number 27. So maybe your homework tonight or this week or in the days ahead is to do all of your stitched out blocks.
Right.
And then when we do part 3, we'll be doing the filler blocks.
Exactly.
And then we'll go on for part 4. We will be doing a block where it has 3 pieces and it has applique. We'll be doing the little girl with the inner tube.
Right, we will use her as our example, but don't forget that one other block, the sailing block, don't do that yet, even though it's all stitching, because you will do a 2-line, it's a 2 fabric. But there are so many, but we will do an applique block with the 2 or 3 fabric ones so that you guys get an idea. But a lot of these blocks that are stitch out, your whale, your hibiscus, your beach best escape, anyone can have. Any of those are stitch out blocks. Your scuba, all of those are stitch blocks. Okay?
Okay, so thank you for joining us for the conclusion of part 2 of Take Me to the Beach. We will join you again very soon for part 3. So we will see you soon. Thanks for joining us today.
See you real soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.